Now let's talk about colors in CSS, right? Something that you have been waiting on, right? Because you're probably annoyed every time I'm using red or green color, right? As my example, right? For over here, we were going to write this is going to be colors, right? And we're going to save it. And not only we're going to have a color properties, but also values, right? So we're going to go back to index.html and we're going to delete all this, right? Because we're going to do a little bit different presentation, right? So here we're going to say this is going to be paragraph. We're going to give it a class over here, and we're going to say this is going to be, let's say, number 1, right? Or let's just say 1 over here like this. And then we're going to say this is going to be some dummy text, right? So I'm going to say lorem, right? So some kind of text over here like this. Now what I would want to do is maybe over here, let's make it a little bit smaller so it actually fits in one line. That way it's going to be easier for us to see over here like this. And if we maybe expand it over here a little bit, right? And just write whatever, right? Something over here like this. Then what I'm gonna do over here is I'm just gonna copy them, right? And let's say I'm gonna copy them like 4 times, right? 1, 2, and over here like this, right? Here I'm gonna write 2, and this is gonna be 3 over here, and this is gonna be 4. Over here like this. So now we have 4, right? So now we have 4 paragraphs. And you can see all my hard work, and once I saved it, everything right away turned like this anyway. Well, anyway, my bad, right? So now we have 4 paragraphs over here, right? So then we're going to go to main CSS and start applying the colors, right? So over here, I'm going to say paragraph, and I'm going to say 1, right? So this is going to be the first class, right? Let's go over the properties that we can have. The first property we learned was a color, right? So we said color over here, and this was the value, right? And the next one, well, I didn't want the blue one over here, right? But the next one was a background color, right? So we had a background color, right? So let's put a semicolon so we can actually type it, right? So we're going to have a background color over here, and we also had the values, right? But so far, we have been only covering these colors, right? The named colors, which they are a lot, right? And it's neat that the brackets is providing us with an options, right? But you're obviously we're going to want something way more specific than this, right? Because once you're starting to do your own project, you don't want to deal with these colors in most cases, right? So there is other options. Now let's go over those options, right? So for paragraph 1 over here, I'm going to write this is going to be RGBA over here. I'm sorry, RGB. Let's just do RGB, right? And I'm going to put a parentheses over here, right? And RGB actually stands for red, green, and blue over here, right? So if I go back over here, and if I'm going to write that this is going to be 255, right? Because it takes values from 0 to 255 over here, then this text should be totally red, right? Because we give it a max of red, and the rest of them will have 0, and over here 0, right? Sure enough, this text over here turns red, right? Now for the background color, right? Let's use it a little bit differently, right? So I'm going to say this is going to be RGB over here. And then we're going to use percentages, right? And again, it works the same way, right? Just one thing that we need to remember that 0, 0, 0 would be totally black. And over here for 255, it would all be white, right? So if I say 255, 255, this is going to be all white, right? That's why we cannot see it right now, right? So let's go back over here. And let's say that we would want 0, 0, 0, right? So this is going to be black. Now let's copy this guy over here like this. Let's just copy this guy. Let's say 2 over here. And then we're going to say RGB. And over here we're going to say 0, right? And let's have the green one. We'll have 255, right? And now let's just play around with these percentages, right? So I'm going to say let's something like 20%, right? Then we're going to have over here 30%, right? And I don't know what kind of color is going to be, right? So I'm just pretty randomly setting up the values right now. 30%, and this is going to be 40% over here like this, right? So this is going to be the background color, right? So it's, again, I'm not going to be able to tell you, but what I'm trying to show you is that we can have these values also as percentages, right? So let's copy both of these over here like this, and copy them over here. And we're going to go down. And let's say for this guy, we're going to say this is going to be 255 on over here, blue one, 255. And let's just say 0 over here. And for this guy, we're going to say this is going to be class 3 over here, right? So now we have a blue text, right? And the background also, I don't know, let's do something like 200 over here, and let's say over here 100, right? So let's leave the green one empty, right? 0 over here, right? So now we have these two values. And for this guy over here, let's do something like this. Let's say this is going to be 255 over here like this. And then for the background, we're going to say 0. And this is going to be also 0. And this is also going to be 0. Right here like this, right? So black background, white text. And this is going to be number 4, right? So now these are the values that we have, right? So now you're starting to understand how we can work with RGB values, right? Now let me show you two neat things, right, about the brackets. Well, actually one neat thing about brackets and then another value over here, right? So if I right click it over here on the brackets, right, you can see the quick edit, right? If I press quick edit, see what's happening, right? It tells me the color that I have over here. It says, well, you have a black one, right? So it's RGB, and over here 0, 0, 0, right? So let's see what's happening, right? You can see right now I can just play with these colors however I would like, right? It shows me the old one, right? And it shows me what I would be changing to, right? So I can go over here and just pick whatever I want, right? What if I don't want the reddish one, right? I'm just going to do it like this, right? You can see that I totally can change, right? And probably and in each and every place, I can change the color even more, right? So you don't need to be an expert of remembering those colors, right? You can just do it this way with the brackets also, if that's something you prefer, right? Now, another thing that I want to show you is, you see over here, this RGBA, right? What the A stands for, right? So if we're going to go back over here and we're going to again do it a little bit differently, right? We will going to delete all these guys for now, right? And over here, we're going to say that this is going to stay with RGB over here. So it's going to be red text over here. And then for the background, right, I'm going to say 0, over here 0, and 0, right? However, if we go back over here and add this A value, this stands for opacity. And opacity is basically transparency. And transparency is basically how visible it is, right? And the values we have over here is going to be from 0 to 1. So I'm going to place comma over here. I'm going to say 1, right? So this is going to be totally dark black, right? That's the opacity one. Now let's grab these guys and just say 1, 2, 3, right? Again, let's make these classes. Let's say this is going to be 2, and this guy is going to be number 3, over here like this, 3, and this guy is going to be number 4. So this guy is going to be number 4. Now, the RGB for the color is going to stay the same. But let's change these values, right? So this is going to be 0.75, right? So you can see that it got lighter. So this guy is going to be, let's say, 0.5, right? Even more lighter, right? And let's say this guy is going to be 0.25, right? So it's almost here, right? So the only thing maybe is missing is one that has a 0, right? So let's go back over here and let's just copy and paste this and let's make number 5, right? So here we're going to write 5 over here like this, save this, main CSS, and copy and paste this guy, and we're going to say 5 over here, and let's set this one to 0, right? So now you can see this is going to be totally white, right? So you can see what happens. We started totally black, and then opacity changed, and totally black is gone, right? And obviously we could have done the same thing with the text, right? So if we have opacity over here, right? If we add over here this color, right? And here we're just gonna add 1, which means that it would be the same as it was before, right? Because 1 means basically I want full opacity, right? Then we're gonna go over here and we're gonna say this is gonna be again 0.7, right? So 0.75 over here like this, right? Then we're gonna have the next one is gonna be 0.5, right? And this is also gonna be A. Then we're gonna have A over here and A over here, and this one over here is gonna be 0.25, right? And this one is gonna be 0, right? So I'm gonna say 0, right? So you can see this one disappears totally, right? The text and the actual background, right? And again, works the same way with the brackets, right? So we go back over here, we say quick edit, right? And again, this is the opacity value, right? So first we can change the color whatever we want, right? Then we have over here this total color conversion, right? Not only the little shades, right? And then here, this is opacity. Bam, right? Gone. Nothing, zero, like my RGB. And over here, you can see it says the value 78, 72, 131, 0 over here. And this is going to be it for RGB and RGBA values. And now let's look at other color option, which is going to be hex colors, right? So over here, I'm going to say this is going to be hex colors over here, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the classes like the way they are, right? But over here, I would want to delete this, right? So we're going to get rid of the RGB, right? And RGBA, both of them, right? And we're going to start looking at hex colors, right? So I'm going to delete these guys over here like this, and over here like this also, right? And it's going to be a little bit of deleting, right? But it's just going to make sense if we actually starting from the fresh, right? And start applying these colors. So these guys are gone, and over here this guy also needs to disappear, right? And then this guy, right, also needs to go. And over here last one is this guy, right? And we'll see whether we're going to use actually all 5 of them. Just in case, let's get rid of them over here like this. We'll save it, and let's go back over here to the color. And how do we work with hex color? So here for the hex color, we actually use a hashtag. And then we have 6 letters, right? And when I say letters, basically it's 6 spaces, right? And we have an option of putting a numbers from 0 to 9 over here, or we can have a letters from A to F. Let me show you how this works, right? So again, I'm going to say 0, 0, 0, 0 over here, and then 0, 0. And what this leads, right? This actually leads to the black, right? And this is another neat feature about brackets, right? As you can see, as I hover over here, right, it tells me, well, it shows me what is the color, right? And what this hex stands for, it's actually very similar to RGB, right? So the first value would be over here red, over here like this, right? The second one is going to be green, and the third one is blue. So if you remember, right, that we had values from 0 to 9, right? And the way it works over here, right? So we have 0 to 9 values over here like this, and then we have numbers. And numbers actually correspond to the letter, right? And the letters actually respond to numbers, right? So A is equal to 10, over here B is equal to, over here to A11, right? And then all the way to F, and F is going to be equal to 16, over here like this, right? So what happens is the max I can have is F. So if I go to the red one, remember the first 2 letters were the red one, right? And if I give it a max value over here, it would be the same as if I would be having RGBA, right? And for the background color, let's go over here, and we're going to say that this is going to be hex, over here like this, and then we're going to say this is going to be, let's say, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 over here like this, right? Over here like this. Now you can see that it's black, right? It's totally black. Now, one thing we can do shortcuts, right? So if you have something like this, actually this would also work, right? So 3 zeros over here we can use, right? The same as we could use 3 Fs, right? This is actually going to be white, right? So what I'm saying is we don't need to type all Fs to get white. We can just type 3 of them, right? And we can use the shortcut the same for the black, right? And also for other colors. So basically what I'm saying is over here, if I have A, and this would be D, and this would be, let's say, you can see 0, right? It does yield the color, right? Now, however, this one would have more specificity, right? So if we have more options over here, right? So let's go back over here, and we're just going to say this is going to be 0 over here like this. And then let's change this one, right? So we're going to say this is going to be 0, 0. This is going to be F, F, and this is going to be 0, 0, right? So sure enough, it yields over here this green one. Then let's go over here and change this guy. Let's start just applying randomly colors, right? So I'm going to say F, and I'm going to say 15025. That's one of the orange colors that I like to use, right? So therefore I'm just applying it, right? Then over here I'm going to say that this is going to be hashtag 0000FF, right? So this is going to be totally blue. And for this guy I'm going to say that this is going to be 191716, right? So I'm just showing you different options, right? So this one will be totally black, and now you're starting to get the idea. So I don't need to be repeating those colors all over it again, right? Now again, we have a neat thing, right? We can right click it, either or, right? Background or color, and you can see again what we can do, right? Same thing with the brackets, right? It also yields us right away the RGB value, right? So here you can see that I'm working with hex color, right? And I can change it over here, right? Now, over here you can see that this is going to be RGB value, right? So I can change it back to the hex, right? Or back to RGB, right? You can see how easy it is to actually switch, right? And what it tells me is this is going to be the RGB value. I'm sorry, the hex value, right? So you have 2E1, E1A, right? So this would be for this color, right? And go back to RGB, this would be this value, right? So if I go back over here and if I check it out, this green one, what would be the RGB, right? So we're gonna go to quick edit, right? And you can see for RGB, this is gonna be 0 to 550, right? Now there's another cool thing that we can do. I'm gonna save this over here and we're gonna go back to Google, right? So here, you can write whatever, right? Let's say that I would wanna get a Twitter color, right? I'm gonna write Twitter Hex Color and you can see that it gives me the value. So I'm gonna grab this sucker over here and I'm gonna copy this one, right? I'm gonna go back over here and I'm going to say that the font color is actually going to be, let's remember the RGB over here, right? And we're going to say this is going to be, let's say 000, which is going to be actually for the black, right? 000 over here. And we're going to say the background color, and we're going to give it a hex color, right? So now we have a Twitter one over here, right? But you know what? Let's just change it. Let's change this to hex, to white hex. So I'm going to say hashtag FFF. Right, so now I have a white one, and this is going to be Twitter background color over here like this. And this is how we can work with hex colors in CSS. And now let's talk about Hsla colors in CSS. And obviously we could have written just HSL, right? Because A stands for alpha channel, which is, if you remember, for RGBA, right? This was basically opacity or transparency, however you would want to call it, right? And over here, the Hsla, right, stands for hue and saturation, lightness, and alpha channel, right? But it's obviously going to be much more easier for me to show you how it actually works, right? So if we're talking about colors, right, it would be useful if we remember the hex and RGB, right? Because if we're using with colors, it's going to be similar, right? So for this one, I'm just going to say this is going to be class over here, and I'm going to say 1, right? So this is going to be paragraph with a dummy text, right? And I'm going to make, like, let's say 6 of them, right? So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So let's just select the whole thing over here. Let's use a beautify for this, right? So it was a little bit easier for us to read. This is 2. This is going to be 3 over here. Then this is going to be 4. This is 5 over here. And the last one is going to be 6. Right, so we have 6 over here. So then we save this over here, and then we go to main CSS, right? And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to target 1, right? And what I want you to remember that the same as with RGB or RGBA for that matter, or hex, right? What's happening is that we can target both the background color and the color of the font, right? We're going to be working with background color, but just remember that we can always target a actual font color also, right? And what is HS over here? LA, right? So for the color, right? So let's say background color, right? And instead of using, again, these name colors or RGB or hex colors, we can use something called HSLA over here, right? And what's happening over here is that for the background color, right? Why we would use this, right? And we would use this because it actually offers us way more color options, right? And the way it stands for is, the first is actually color, right? So it has the value from 0 to actually 360. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover them one by one, right? So here I'm just going to add those values just so we have them. And then once we're done with everything, we're actually going to cover them, right? So here I'm going to say 100%. Or here like this, and then this guy is going to be, let's say 50%, or here like this, and then we're going to have a, let's say, opacity, and opacity is going to be something like 1, right? And again, we're going to cover those values one by one, right? But just for now, let's have them, these guys at 100, this one at 50, and this one at 1, right? So what I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to copy and paste this, and for the 2, we're going to go ahead and we're going to have actually this 120 over here like this, right? Then we're going to have a 2 more. Right, so we're going to copy this guy, and we're going to say this is going to be 3 over here like this. Then this guy, we're going to change it to 240 over here, and you can see already what things are happening, right? And over here for the 4 over here, again, we're going to have the same thing, right? So just copy and paste this guy over here, and copy and paste it over here, and like this, right? And this guy, we're going to change it to 360, right? So 360 over here, right? And you can see what's already happening, right? Again, don't worry about these percentage values. We're going to go over them, right? What we are interested in is this first one, right? And like I said, it goes from 0 to 360, right? And what you can see is when we have 0, right, we have totally red. Then if we have 120, this is going to be totally green. Then 240 is going to be totally blue, and 360 is going to be red again. Now, we didn't need to use the precise values of 120, 240, 360. We can obviously use the different values. And what we're going to do right now, right, we're going to have 2 copies, right? So this is going to be 5. This is going to be 6 over here, right? And we're just going to put some random ones, right? Over here, let's say we're going to do something like 100. And let's say, or you know what, let's do like I don't know, 33, right? So you can see this is going to be orange, and this is going to be 289. And the reason why we're writing them like this is I just want to show you that you don't need to stick with these complete values, right? You can write whatever you would want, but just I want you to know that you start over here with red, then 120 is going to be green, and then 240 is going to be blue. And obviously in between, right? So you're getting these kind of colors, right? So if you're going to go with the 11, this is going to be in between the red and the green. And if you're going to go with, I don't know, 130, this is going to be in between the red, I'm sorry, with the green and the blue. And then again, you go from blue to the red, right? So this is the first number, right? So this is how we work with the first number. So this would be the selecting the color, right? Now the next one, right, would be actually percentage. And what percentage means is the saturation, right? So this would be the second one, would be saturation. And saturation is basically you're saying how saturated is the color, right? And again, the easiest way for us to look at is actually change the values, right? So for number 1, this is going to be 100, right? So let's go over here for 75, right? So you can see that the green isn't anymore not that saturated, right? For the blue, let's make it 50, right? So again, you can see how it's changing, right? For a red again, let's do 25, right? So you can see that this one was 100 saturation and this one is 25, right? This one, we're gonna, let's say, make it to like, I don't know, 10, right? So even though this one was originally, right? So let's look at, right, completely orange. If we go to 10, it is almost, you know, gray. Well, it is gray, but it's almost gonna disappear, right? And let's do 0 over here, right? You can see totally, right? So saturation, right now, the color is not saturated at all, right? So you can see 10% is a little bit, right, off the gray. 0 is totally gray, right? So everything pretty much, if I would add all of them 0, right, all of them would be gray, right? So you can see what happens, right? However, if I have 100, right, this would be the color, the actual color that we picked over here, totally saturated, meaning that would be totally a color that you actually picked for, right? And obviously the values in between, right, it would change, right? So it would start from totally saturated 100%, and if we go totally down to 0, that would be totally gray. Now the next value is over here is the lightness, right? And that's pretty much is a how much we're adding white or black. And again, let's look at now, we already starting mixing a lot of things together, right? So maybe it would be a little bit smart, right? If we would go back over here and if we would actually copy these guys and just so we can see only that one property, right? So over here, we're going to say this is going to be 7 over here, and then this is going to be 8 over here, 8, and this is going to be 9, right? And maybe we don't need all of them. Let's have 10. You know what, whatever. Since we started 11 over here, 11, right? So we have them, and we have more of these, right? So now let's leave these guys the way they are, right? And we're just gonna work with this value, right? Because I just want you to see a little bit better. Otherwise, if we're gonna be adding more values, you might get confused over here, right? So I'm gonna copy and paste this guy over here, and this is not gonna be 1. Let's say over here we're gonna say this is 7, right? So this is gonna be totally a red one, right? Now the difference over here, what we're gonna have, right? And you can see that I actually have 2 7s because I have 2 of them, the ones that are actually red, and that's not really what we wanted, right? So over here you can see that this is gonna be 7, right? And here I have the 1, right? So not 2 7s, I have 2 1s, right? So I'd want to delete this guy over here, and if we go back, right, with the 7, and this is the value, right? So let's have this one at 50, right? However, sorry, it was over here. But now for the 8, let's actually change it a little bit, right? So copy and paste this, right? And let's have it 8 over here like this, right? And you can see for now it's the same, right? Now this one goes, if I have 100, this actually is gonna inject the white color, right? And meaning if I have it to 100%, you can see it's gonna be totally white, right? Now let's copy and paste this over here. And let's say for the 9, over here, for 9, over here, this is going to be our 9. Let's have it to 0, the third value, right? So again, we have these two values the same, right? So, and this is going to be totally red. This is going to be 100% saturated. However, these are the values we're changing. 50%, 100%, and over here 0%, right? So you can see the difference, the background color. This is going to be totally white because this is 100% of over here the lightness, right? However, with the 0, this is totally dark, right? So this is another value that you can actually add on, right? So again, if we go to, let's say, number 10, and we're gonna add some value in between, right? So for the class of 10 over here, let's say we're gonna write something like 25, right? So again, the initial color is red. Now you can see with a 24%, right? So it's not somewhere in between, right? 50% would be totally red, right? Because the black and white would even out. Well, 24 is in between the red and black, right? And we're gonna copy and paste these guys, right? This is gonna be now 11, and we're gonna put that to, let's say, 75, right? So we're gonna go back over here, and hopefully the class is written correctly, right? And here we're gonna write 75, right, like this. You can see that I messed up somewhere in a class. 11s, it's 11, right? And you can see the difference, right? This is 25%, right? And this guy is going to be 75%, right? So that's the actual lightness. And the last one is actually opacity, right? Alpha channel. And that's very straightforward, the same as RGBA, right? So if this is going to be 1 over here, let's change this guy to, let's say, 0.75, right? So this becomes lighter. Then this guy is totally 0.5. Then this guy is going to be 0.25. Over here like this, 0.25, right? And this is going to be totally 1, right? And you can see what happens with the 1, right? So this guy is going to be totally white, right? Basically, we're going to have no background anyway, right? And if we'll do the same thing over here, right? So this is also going to be white. So basically, it's totally transparent, right? And this is how we would work with a hue, saturation, lightness, and alpha channel, or for short, this would be Hsla. And the reason for it, we can have way more color options than with Hex or RGBA. And now let's talk about where we can get nice set of color options, right? So we're gonna do very basic, right? We're gonna say a paragraph, right? And let's say, hey, I need a color. Hey, I need a background color, right? So we're gonna have that. Then we're gonna basically go to main CSS and just have a paragraph, right? And then we're gonna have a background color, right? And for now, we're gonna leave it blank, and we're gonna look at multiple options, right? And the first option that I really strongly suggest over here is if we go to more tools, right? And you have the same thing for a Firefox, right? But we're gonna be using Google Chrome, right? You go over here, we go to extensions, right? And you can just download, right? So get more extensions, and you can see I already downloaded. This is called Colorzilla, right? And the way it works over here is if we, let's say, go back to Udemy, right? And over here you can see this little one, right? Pick color from the page. And as what happens is, right, you can see over here, right? As I'm scrolling over the page, right, you can see that I picked this color, right? So if I go back over here, and if I just copy and paste this, right, so this is going to be my background color, right, because I picked it from here. And obviously I can pick whatever colors I would want, right? I can pick from the actual background, right? I can pick from the actual whatever I would have from the actual image, right? So over here again, if I would do over here, pick the color from the page, right? And even if I go over here on the photo, which is going to be in case my photo or whatever, right? But if you go to any kind of photo, you can actually pick the color from there, right? And you can see over here the suggestions, right? So this would be the red one, this would be the green one, this would be over here, right? So again, you have tons and tons of options where you can actually pick it from, right? And the next one would be actually Adobe, right? So if you don't like this Colorzilla, right? So let's say that you're not happy with this guy, right? We can just close this Udemy. And over here, if we go to color, right? Adobe.com, right? So over here, what happens is that, first of all, we get a lot of color options here, right? So over here, we can change it around, then we can make this one different, right? So we have a color rules, right? So then we have a triad, right? So these would be the colors that we would want. Then maybe we'll have a shades, right? So we can look at different shades, would it work, right? Now, if you don't like this, right? Because right away it gives you all the options that you need, right? So all the actual colors that would work together. You can go to explore, right? And over here, we're actually getting a color options that would be different colors that actually work really well together, right? So again, very straightforward over here, save, download, edit, copy. I mean, you can just in literally like 30 seconds, you can get very, very good looking colors together, right? So if you want more option, if you're still not happy with something, right? Over here, if you type coolers over here like this, and let's just check it out, right? So coolers, not colors, but with 2 O's over here. And it pretty much works the same as Adobe, right? So we'll have a start generator over here like this, and click it. Now it's going to time to download. And what's happening is, again, same deal, gives you the color options. And as you press spacebar, you can see what happens, right? The colors are changing, right? And again, the numbers are all the way here, so you can just write them down whichever you would like. Now you also have an option here. I can lock this one. Let's say I like this color. And as I keep pressing the spacebar, you can see this color stays, but it gives me the colors that would actually go together, right? So if I keep looking, right? And let's say I found this one, right? So I'm gonna keep these ones. And again, as I'm pressing spacebar, you can see self-explanatory. 3 of them are changing, 2 stay the same, right? So I'm gonna have these 3, and then let's say over here this guy, and then I just keep looking for the last color, right? So this is the options that you have: Colorzilla, Adobe over here, and then you have a coolers.co,